Let me bring in Senator Tom Udall, Democrat from New Mexico. Good to see you, Senator. Good morning.
Okay, good morning. Good to be with you, Chris.
In President Obama's interview with Charlie Rose last night, he says that he will meet with a privacy oversight board to talk about what's going on with the NSA, to try to declassify more documents. And you have been one of the people who have said, look, we need to have a more transparent debate. Will this help satisfy your concerns? I mean, I think a natural question is, what does, quote unquote, more transparency look like when you have so many things that are classified?
Yeah, that's very, very true. And Chris, the reality is that this oversight board that was supposed to deal with civil liberties and privacy hasn't been filled for a very, very long time. Created a long time ago. The administration was slow in terms of filling the positions. It finally now is in a position to act and to move out there and see if the right balance is being created. But this has been a long time coming. I have written a letter to them. It's a bipartisan letter. It's saying this is very serious under our Constitution, what's happening. We want you to look into it and come back with conclusions to us. And I'm encouraged that the President is meeting with the Oversight Board and having a discussion with them. But I want them to go forward. I want them to be aggressive. And I want them to look at the constitutional issues that are involved here.
You were also very critical of the NSA chief when he came before the Senate last week. And we've learned more about this situation since then. Do you have more questions for him? What would you like to hear him be asked today?
Well, I think the first thing we have to do if we're talking transparency and openness is we have to get the secret orders, the things that the court has put in place, the legal analysis, get all of that out in the open. I mean, we're functioning now under a very... So be made public, not just to members of committees, but out in public. That's right. I think when it comes to the legal analysis of why you're doing specific things, that should be out in public. We should know how they're dealing with the Fourth Amendment issues. I mean, we know that the Fourth Amendment specifically says that the court should be involved in terms of reaching this balance. We don't know how much the courts are restricted, and we don't know how much they're really involved with the constitutional issues right now. And the Fourth Amendment is what I'm really worried about. Seizing people's information without a reasonable suspicion. I mean, that's in the Constitution. It's right there. Talks about the courts being involved.
I want to switch gears if I can, and we're watching
Sure.
Mike Rogers get started with this hearing, and we want to let folks know we'll be listening in on that. But let's talk a little bit about Syria. The president at the G8 summit right now, he met with Russian President Vladimir Putin, who says he's not going to arm the rebels. But I'm sure you know 7 of 8 of the G8 nations agree that Assad must go. Now, you were one of only 3 Democrats who voted against arming the rebels. What should the U.S. do, particularly about, and this is the argument that gets made, 10,000 people being killed every month?
Oh, sure. And we know that President Assad is a brutal dictator. He's done some horrible things. But the big question for us is, do we step into a middle of a civil war? I mean, what's going on there is this split between the Sunnis and the Shia that goes back to the 7th century. And they're coming in from all across the region to fight in this civil war. And do we want to plant America in the middle of that civil war? I think that's the big question. And if you're talking about arms, who are we arming? We don't really know very much about these groups. There are a lot of groups out there. Some days, some are up, some are down. I don't have any assurance, and I would be asking these questions of all of the witnesses before Congress. Can you assure us that if you're going to give heavy weapons to these rebels, that they're going to stay in the right hands, that they aren't going to hurt our allies like Turkey and Israel and Iraq that are in the region? I mean, some of these rebels have come over from Iraq. They're Sunnis. They could very well go back there and try to destabilize the Iraqi government with heavy weapons that they get in Syria. So we really haven't had the questions answered. Who are we arming? And if you're really going to arm rebels with with heavy weapons, are you going to be able to track those weapons? Are you going to be able to make sure they don't fall into the wrong hands? Al-Qaeda and its affiliates are there in a big way, and I'm very worried about those kinds of weapons falling into their hands.
Well, the president answered your first question, who are these rebels, last night when he talked to Charlie Rose. So let me play for you exactly what he had to say.
You bet.
We have deepened our relationship, and we have better information about who are the moderate members of the opposition, who are members of the opposition who are affiliated with al-Nusra, who are affiliated with al-Qaeda, who are coming in from Iraq or Yemen or Pakistan or Afghanistan.
So do you think that the president knows more about the rebels? Do you think he just has a different interpretation about the dangers that are posed by arming them?
Well, I think the situation is still that there isn't a real command structure, that it's very fractured, it's very splintered. I'm sure the president knows more than I do, but I think he has a responsibility to the American people to say very directly to the American people, why are we getting in the middle of a civil war? Why are we arming people that we don't know if those weapons are going to get in the wrong hands? Those are the big questions of the day, and those weapons, heavy weapons that we're talking about putting in, those could go to Al-Qaeda or Al-Qaeda affiliates, appear back in Iraq to destabilize that government when we've spent so much time and effort at trying to stabilize. So we've got some serious questions that need to be answered by the White House and its team.
Senator Tom Udall, Democrat from New Mexico, it is good to have you on the program, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. A real pleasure.
Thank you.